Hi and welcome everyone that's agreed to be part of the IFES lecture series on atom probe tomography. First of all, I would really like to thank every one of you that has agreed to be part of this. I think it will be a really great thing for the community, both for people that are established groups, but also especially I think for people that are sort of lone rangers, that are new groups that are really trying to build up knowledge. And yeah, really a big thank you to every one of you that's willing to put time and effort into this. I think we can really create some good value for the community with our lectures. And so the first thing I want to do is obviously go and give a little bit of an impression of what you can do in terms of creating a recorded lecture. So many of you that are participating in this are themselves university lecturers and have, especially in the last semester during the Corona period, gained quite some experience with giving online lectures and or recording lectures. So what I want to show you today is what we do here at my institute and maybe give you some ideas of what you can do in your own lecture. And show you a little bit of what has worked for us. But obviously, if you have your own ideas, especially if you've came up with your own ideas over the last semester that will work really well for you, I'm obviously not going to keep you from keeping your ways of lecture recording open. I think the only thing we should do is have a little bit of consistency in terms of look and feel during your lectures, but that is not the highest priority. The highest priority is really to be able to teach the fundamentals of atom probe tomography to new students by whatever means necessary. Yeah? And whatever means necessary in these days obviously means some kind of video lectures where we provide, the presentation together with the spoken content. Which is a little bit different from from giving people books to read, especially because it makes everything a lot more interactive. And very often, especially when it comes to the very fundamentals, the inherently serial nature of a lecture is just something that's much more suited to the learning progress of someone that's new to a field. If you already have made it through the absolute fundamentals, then obviously books are the way to go. But I think especially for new students or researchers that are new to the topic, video is a very, very good means to teach to people. And so what are the most important aspects of videos? Well, the most important aspects of videos are obviously, besides the content obviously needs to be good, is that they have good audio quality and reasonable video quality. I say that full well knowing that nice video quality is also very good, but what is especially important is that the audio quality is very good and very consistent. And the reason for that being is that if you are watching lectures for a longer period of time, it becomes very strenuous if the audio quality is not very high. And you can actually produce lectures like this with relatively little investment. As again, many of you are university lecturers, so you might have a setup that's already working for you. But for everyone that this doesn't apply to, I will give you an introduction in all the different things, into all of the different hardware and software aspects of recording a lecture and also recording lab work, because there's quite a few lectures that we have where it will be very helpful to have lectures coming out of the lab. Yeah, so you might want to show people how certain setups work in the lab, how to move samples around, whatever. And also you might want to show people how certain instruments are operated, which might require you to, in an ideal case, siphon off some of the signal on the screen. So you want to screen capture from instruments where you can't install software necessarily. But for all of that, if nothing else works, pointing a webcam at a screen always works, or pointing a webcam at a sheet of paper where you draw always works as well. So one of the most important boundary conditions for our lecture series, we want to make them openly available, and this puts the restriction on the on the lectures that we need to either own the copyright to any of the material that is used in the lectures, as in you as a lecturer need to own the copyright, or you need to be given copyright permission. So it is very important, and that's why I will go with you. I will go through your lectures and just check if we have anything that could be a potential sticking point in terms of copyright. Since these lectures are supposed to be fundamentals lectures, it is not paramount for you to use original content from the papers that have published those fundamentals. Yeah. Especially, you can say, okay, this came from this and this person in this and this paper, and maybe also write down the citation. But it's very possible for you to just redraw a graph rather than using it from the paper. Because if you want to teach fundamental concepts, you don't need to have, it doesn't need to exactly follow the line. You can just redraw it from the paper that you might have lying next to you, or that you might have displayed on a different screen, and just redraw. And this also helps you pace yourself. This brings me to an aspect that's maybe important, especially for everyone that's not a university lecturer and that doesn't teach undergrad courses and graduate courses on a regular basis. These are explicitly not scientific talks. And the difference is very much the pace. So if you give a scientific talk, it's very dense in information. In our case, with the IFES lectures, we want people to be able to follow the content very easily. So if you give a 90-minute lecture, then the amount of content, if you compare it to a scientific talk, would be half or maybe a third of what you would get through in a scientific talk. Because I got some questions of people that asked me for the lecture, what am I going to talk about for 90 minutes? Trust me, go slow, explain everything in depth. Okay, we want to have very in-depth explanations, so that people really understand the fundamentals. And if you do that, trust me, 90 minutes is not a very long time. Just to give you a comparison, I hold a class on tensor mechanics, and in that class I take 90 minutes just to explain what a tensor is, a stress tensor is, and what its components are. Because you draw little cubes, you draw vector arrows, and so on and so forth. And that takes quite a while, and that is also necessary for people to learn that in a good way. So pace yourself, and that's why drawing is actually a very good way of doing that. And with that, I actually want to go and show you the software first that we use to record, and then I will show you the hardware aspects of everything. So the software that we're using is, as you might have guessed, for the presentation itself is PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint. I will just switch over to PowerPoint. So you can see here, I've got PowerPoint running, and I've got it on the entire screen. So you can see it's just regular PowerPoint. This here are some slides from my Fundamentals of Atom Probe Instrumentation lecture that I give, that I give as a workshop on a yearly basis. And in here you already see there are some diagrams where I definitely do not own the copyrights, so I would redraw them in my lecture. But the images of the chamber from my new atom probe, for example, I obviously own the copyright to those, so it's absolutely not a problem to show those. Obviously, showing items is also not a problem. So how do we turn the whole thing into a proper lecture, into a proper video format? Because obviously you can see me in the recording, which is optional. Yeah, so you can record it without you being in the picture. But I think it really creates some connection between the lecturer and the students or whoever watches the lectures if you're in the image. And so what we are using is a piece of software called Open Broadcaster Studio. So you can see this software here. So this is Open Broadcaster Studio, and you can go and download that. So if you Google OBS, you will easily find Open Broadcaster Studio, and we will provide you with a scene collection that's sort of starting out with a layout like in the welcome screen that I just showed you before, where obviously the logos will not be the logos from our university, but the logos will be an IFES logo on one side, and on the other side you will be able to put a logo of your institution, because obviously if you put in the effort, you should also be able to generate some recognition for your institution. And so with Open Broadcaster Studio, you can see here we've got scenes, sources, and an audio mixer. And so essentially we have various sources of content that we can group into an individual scene. Sorry, everything's in German here, so you might not be able to see that very well, to read it. Oops, now I've moved the recording. Great. That was my fault. Essentially what it is you take whatever sources you have. So I can, for example, click and add a new source and group them into a scene. For example, one source could be a screen that displays PowerPoint. You can also use just a window that displays PowerPoint. And you group those into scenes. If you just give a presentation off of PowerPoint, you probably only will need one scene, or maybe two if you want to have a welcome screen scene. But apart from that, you probably don't need much of a large scene collection. Obviously, if you want to start showing things, you might want to be able to do that on a different camera, and so on and so forth. So for most of you, the most important source will just be a screen presentation. And then you have the option here to record your screen, or to record your scene to a file. And please do so in at least 1080p, okay? So 1080p resolution is the lowest we would like to see. So please no 720p or anything below, because we want to be able to, especially graphs and the like, easily legible to the students. Good. So that's the basic software setup for a PowerPoint presentation. If we additionally have drawings, and I can just see that my webcam is mirrored here. If we additionally have drawings, we use a program called Krita. Okay, Krita, and let me just switch off the white background, and the tablet let me just make it a little bit bigger so you can see all of the tablet. And so Krita is a free and open source drawing program that we use to draw any diagrams. So anything that you want to redraw because you might not have the copyright to it, is great if you can draw it in Krita. You can obviously use Photoshop or GIMP or whatever you like, but Krita is a very good option that is free and open source. And this brings me to, and let me just show you, so you can just go and say, okay, I want to draw some lines here, and I can erase the lines if I don't need them. And you can draw freehand, and you can pick colors if you like. So you can, for example, pick this purple. Oops. And for some reason it jumped to 0% here. So you can draw in purple. And this allows you to easily create slides. And I can just show you one from one of my lectures that's maybe a little bit more extensive than what we have here. Open resin. So for example, this is a slide about Moore's stress circle. And you can, I think, get very instructive using Krita. Okay, and this actually brings me now to the hardware that we're using for this. So you can already see I'm wearing a headset because I mentioned in the beginning that sound is very important when you give an online lecture. Yeah? And let me just now switch you to the room view. And what you can see here is that we have a relatively sophisticated setup here in our streaming room that allows us to stream at really high quality, our lectures and video conferences and whatever. But this is not really 100% necessary, okay? You can do that all on your laptop, but there's a couple of things that might actually be very helpful that if you don't already have them, you might want to get, and in some cases I might be able to loan something to you. As you can see here, the monitor setup that I have 4 monitors, and this is because we actually at the same time stream our lectures and record them. If you just record a lecture, then you definitely don't need 4 screens. Okay, you might need 2 screens. Once you can get away with 1 screen or 2 screens, but you absolutely definitely do not need more than 3 screens. So why do we have 4 screens here? So you can already see I have 1 screen where I have my PowerPoint presentation running, so I can switch onto that screen. I have 1 screen where I have Krita running, and that's a very special screen. That is a drawing tablet. Okay, this is another drawing tablet that I've just put here to show you. And on the third screen, I have all of the control systems running. This is so that I can use both of those screens in full screen mode and still see all of my controls. If you do not have a setup with this many screens, you might work off of a laptop with 1 external screen or something like that, or you might have a PC with maybe 1 larger screen. Then it's very easy to work with Windows as well. So you might move your PowerPoint presentation into 1 window and just stream off of that and just record off of that 1 window. You can also just select a window here. In this case, you just need to be aware that if you jump between programs, it might be that you have to have a couple of more scenes. Here it's very easy because I can just drag whatever I want to show to students onto that screen. It's just a little bit of added convenience. But if you have just 1 screen, especially if it's a 4K screen, a 4K screen is essentially 4 1080p screens. Yeah, so you can think about it as in you put 1 presentation at the top right. You might want to put your drawing program below it, and then you still have 2 equivalent 1080p screens at your disposal. If you do a little bit more drawing, and if you teach at a university right now, generally I would highly recommend you get a drawing tablet. And this is what you can see here. So this here is essentially the highest end drawing tablet that you can get. So this is a Wacom Cintiq Pro 24-inch. This tablet is really good. It has a very fast digitizer. It has a very nice pressure sensitive pen with an eraser, and it's very flat. And the screen is laminated to the glass. And this is why it's so expensive, okay? This is why it's so expensive. It costs about $2,000 to $2,500 to buy. Which of course, if like in our case, we teach off of this thing for about 20 hours a week between 6 or 7 lectures. So it's paid for itself very quickly. Obviously, if you just give 1 lecture, that's a bit of a large expense that you might not want to spend that much money for. But if you have the possibility to get one of those, they are very, very good tablets. In recent years, especially in the last year or so, other companies have caught up with Wacom and also produced very good tablets. So this here is a tablet that I've bought for my office because I do have one lecture where I have a scheduling conflict, so I can't access the room here. So I do the streaming from my PC. And if some of you have more questions about how I did that, I can do a separate video on that, on the sort of lower, let's say, how can you create a video with a little bit less gear. And this one is I think the 13-inch version. The larger versions don't cost that much more. They just take up more space on my desk. That's why I got the 13-inch one. I have to be honest with you though, I wish I would have gotten a little bit larger one. So being used to the 24-inch one, the 13-inch one is a little bit small. So this is from a company called XP Pen. And this one costed about 350 euros. Okay, so this is about an order of magnitude cheaper than this thing here. The trade-off that you have is that the digitizer is not quite as fast. So sometimes when and the drivers are not as good. So sometimes when I draw very fast, especially at a higher resolution of canvas, then this doesn't quite keep up, while I never had any problems with this tablet keeping up. Both of them have screens that are laminated to frosted glass, so you have very little parallax issues. Yeah? So both of them are good in that regard. I wouldn't say that this thing is 10 times better than this thing, but this thing is really good. Okay. Another thing we have here that I just want to briefly mention is something called a Stream Deck. What this is very simple. It's a macro pad that allows us to switch between different OBS scenes. If you're interested in getting one, I can recommend it, but it's not as necessary. You can just click on the software, and if I go back to the control screen, you can see if I want to switch between scenes, I can just click on the OBS software as well, and all that our little Stream Deck device does is really switch between scenes, start recording, stop recording, things like that. It's just an added layer of convenience. Going back to the room itself, other things that we have is we have obviously webcams. We have webcams, and you can see, well, you can't see the webcam that I'm filming you from right now, but there is obviously the webcam that films the room. And this webcam we usually use to show items in the lecture. So it's not usually used pointing at the lecturer so that you can show the setup, but it's more used to show items. So I've just taken a valve from the lab, so you could, for example, go and show the students what a KF16 stainless steel valve looks like, and how you open it and how you close it. Yeah. And this really makes an extra webcam pretty handy. But of course, it's good enough if you just simply have one webcam and you just show it here. And I'm saying that because a lot of you probably have webcams, and buying another webcam right now is usually the wait times are a little bit insane right now. So. This is a bit of a problem, obviously. Another thing you can see, and that is also pretty optional, is that behind me I do have something called a green screen, and we have illumination in the room. So if I go back to the room, one thing you might not be able to see that well, but I'll just point it to you, is we have a green screen, and a green screen is very simple. It's just something green, in order for you to be able to crop out the background. They're not very expensive to buy. They cost about 150 euros. But if you want to do it cheaper, before I had the nice green screen wall here, what I had was just a couple of pieces of green A0 sheets. Some other colleagues used just simply a green blanket or something like that. Anything green will really do. Other than that, you could just sit up against a background that you're happy with to be in the recording. Another thing we have is illumination. So we have soft LED. We have soft LED illumination, and this just makes it makes us look nicer on the video. This is obviously all very optional as well. I just wanted to show it to you. in case you're interested to do that. Obviously, you wouldn't do that just for one lecture, but if you if you plan to do a lot more lectures like this in the next semester anyway, it might just be worth a little bit of an investment. They're not super expensive either. And this is sort of the base setup for the video lecture. So I think what would be great is that if you need to draw, that you have a access to a drawing tablet. Maybe ask at your institution. If you don't have one, ask around at your institution. Maybe your media people will be able to lend you one for a little while, for a day or so. Or you might be able to get one from some Corona-related teaching funds. It is really highly recommended. And I think in terms of getting around copyright issues, reproducing graphs on a canvas, like I've shown you just before, is actually a very valuable way to go about these things. Okay, so this means, okay, for if you wanna if you're only going to be doing lectures off of your computer, which is anyone that does fundamentals lectures, data analysis lectures, and so on and so forth, you're probably covered with all of this. But there will also be people going into the lab, and if you're going into the lab, then you want to do some lab recording, some video recording in the lab. And let me just move that down again a little bit. You want to be able to do some video record. Oh, one thing, sorry, I forgot about the most important thing, the sound. So the one thing that I really highly recommend for you to get is a good microphone. They don't cost a lot of money these days anymore. So what we are using here, so the microphone that I'm using here, that you saw in the video before, is a Rode NT USB. And what the important part about it is it is a condenser microphone. And I think I was a little bit too close now, so I think I produced a little bit of clipping here, which you can see if the soundbar goes into the red. But I highly recommend you get some kind of condenser microphone, USB condenser microphone, for example, which will not cost a lot of money. So the one that we got is about a €300 microphone, so that's already a bit more expensive one, but you can get fairly decent ones for about 50 to 60 euros as well. So I would really highly recommend you get one of those. I was surprised though recently how good phone headsets have gotten. So you might have a headset from your phone with a microphone in it that might also do a fairly decent job at recording. You can also see that I'm wearing headphones. The reason for that is that during your lecture, it's very important for you to monitor the audio. It gets very strenuous for anyone that's listening to you for an extended period of time if your lecture gets louder and more silent, over the course of the lecture. And so if you use a pair of headphones to monitor your own sound, then you can gauge very well if you get louder or less loud. Alternatively, you might also choose to just pay attention to the soundbar here. You can see, and just make sure that you're mostly in sort of the upper green and a little bit of yellow, and don't go into the red too much. If you're hitting the max here, then you're starting to get into clipping, and that's very that's not very nice to listen to if sound goes into clipping. So so your base gear might be some kind of microphone, hopefully a condenser microphone. If you don't have one or have no possibility to get one, then maybe just test if your phone headset works okay, or some other headset you might have. This actually should set you up very well for the teaching on the PC. But not everyone will be on the PC, so let me show you what you can do in terms of lab teaching. And at the end of that video, I will add a video where I show you some footage from the lab that I've acquired. And so with that, I'll just switch back to the room camera. Which obviously the problem with the condenser microphone is in the end though is you can't move around very well, okay, because it's stationary and you can see if I move around the sound changes. Okay, so if you go and record in the lab, I think the most convenient thing to use to record in the lab is just your phone. Phone cameras have gotten really good over the last couple of years. And I have, so my phone here is an iPhone 11, so nothing special. I don't think it matters if you have an Android or an iPhone or maybe still a Windows phone, maybe that would be a problem. But anyway, if you have a sort of modern phone, I think it's it's very possible to just record everything using your phone. And on top of your phone, what I highly recommend is that you get a smartphone gimbal. These smartphone gimbals, what they are is just they're stabilizers, and they just allow you to move around and have your camera, the camera of your smartphone pointed somewhere and move around without shaky footage. These stabilizers, they can actually be bought for, they might look a little bit expensive, but they're very cheap. They cost about 100 euros. So this is a DJI Osmo Mobile 3. And this is sort of on the higher end of things. You can get some for 50 euros as well. I do recommend this one though, because it has a very good software features. And most of all, you can use it to track yourself. So you can film in the lab, have the camera follow you, and do that without someone holding, without someone actually being the cameraman, because you can get so this thing, the sort of tripod comes with the stabilizer. You can put it somewhere, and you can have your phone sort of record you while you move around. Depending on how loud your lab is or not, and how long the video is, I also recommend using, one thing maybe, let's just switch it on again. No, I think now I've not been as nice to the gimbal as I should be, maybe. So please acquire your footage in landscape mode if you can, okay? Otherwise, it's going to be a problem, obviously, to cut the footage, which is something that I will be doing. Or I can do. If you want to do it yourself, you're obviously free to do it, but I can do some of the cutting for you. So smartphone gimbal, highly recommended, and I'll show you just after this in the lab what you can do with the smartphone gimbal. And for moving, it's obviously, if you hold it in your hand, you can move things, you can look and film things in your lab, and you can track things. So the software features allow you to just mark something on your screen and have your gimbal follow it. Okay, very highly recommended. If you don't buy it for work, buy it for fun, for fun to film your family or your friends. It's also very, very good for that. In terms of sound, so there's various ways to go about that. The first thing is to just have your phone record the sound. The downside with that is that if you go away from your phone, the sound obviously changes and it might not be the best quality. And here, while you're moving around and you're filming with the gimbal, you can obviously also just use the headset from your phone. That's something that's very easy to do. Or you can get lapel headset. You can get lapel microphones for that. They don't cost a lot. If you want to move around, and that's what I will show you down in the lab, what we are using is a so-called wireless bridge. So the one that I'm using here is a Rode Wireless Go, just simply because it's one of the most affordable ones on the market. It's also pretty decent, and it's very simple. It's just these two things, and when you switch them on, they just create a wireless connection, and you plug your microphone in one side, and you plug the receiver into the other side and into your smartphone, and then you have high quality audio recording while you're moving around in your lab. If you want more information on that, obviously I can give you more information and show you how we use that. And with that, you can actually easily produce very good footage in your lab. And again, I will show you after the video. If you want to record off of an instrument that you cannot afford to put software on, and many electron microscopes, FRBs, maybe your radon probe might not be very well suited to be to install video capture software on, you can use this thing here, and this is a so-called game capture device. There's actually a whole variety of these out there, and what they do is very simple. You plug in this case, HDMI cable, and it just feeds the HDMI cable, and it just feeds the HDMI stream into that device. Let me just show you. This one here is from Elgato, but there's a couple of. It's called Game Capture HD. But there's a couple of companies that make similar things out there. I mean, in these days it's not that easy, not that hard to do that. All you need to do is use an FPGA and decode an HDMI stream or DVI stream or whatever into a format of a webcam, essentially. And there's a couple of different ones out there. I've talked to, for example, Claudia Fleischmann, who might not be able to buy one for her lecture, so I'm going to send it to her and see if that works. But this really allows you to do broadcasts of an instrument while you're operating the instrument without having to install software on it. Okay, and this is this I think would make some of the lectures really shine if we can have some footage off of an electron microscope, off of an radon probe, off of whatever you can think of. Obviously, if you're showing analysis or whatever and you want to show some calculations, it is more than appreciated if you do demonstrations on programs that you're using that maybe you're able to share. That would be really great. Okay, and this really brings me sort of to the end of the technical part here of giving online lectures. And so I would encourage all of you to look around and see if you have all of the items that you need to do your particular lecture. I hope many of you have already gone through the syllabus and have thought about what they exactly want to talk about and what materials they need, also what lecture materials they need. If beside the video, beside the screen recording of your presentation, if you need some lab footage, if you need some footage from instruments, if you want to show some programs, and so on and so forth. And then please get back to me if you have any questions, or if I can assist you in doing that. What you would in the end then have is hopefully the videos. And if you've done that before and you're able to edit the videos yourself, so you might have some experience with Final Cut Pro 10 on Mac or Adobe Premiere Pro or whatever cutting program you use. Camtasia TechSmith, Camtasia, one of the screen capture programs that's also very good for lectures, offers that functionality as well. So if you want to do the cutting yourself, obviously that's highly appreciated. But I am ready to assist you with cutting of the lecture. So if you have lab footage, if you have footage of instrumentation, I can assist you, or I can do the cutting for you on Final Cut Pro on my Mac. And with that, I hope I've given you some somewhat lengthy introduction on how to do on how we do online lectures here. So I don't think I will have enough time to do that today, but I will probably record my lecture either next week or early the week after, and then put that lecture up as soon as I can, so that there is some level of reference for you out there. And then I will obviously also provide you with some basic layout guide of what we want the lectures to look like. It's very simple. It's just, you know, the usual white background thing, and we will have an IFES logo, and you will be obviously free to put your logo of your institution on there as well, just so that we have some little bit consistent look and feel. And in the end, I will add some credits and so on and so forth at the end of the lecture. Yeah, and with that, I'm actually really excited about that because it's not just I'm not just doing that for my students. To be honest, I wanna sit through a lecture by all of the lecturers that have agreed to be part of this as well, and I'm prepared to learn a lot in this lecture series as well, even though I've been doing Atom Probe now for about 10 years. I'm fairly sure I'm still going to be able to learn quite a lot as well during those presentations, and I'm really looking forward to you. And again, really, really big thank you from me and from Ingrid McCarroll and from François Vaupillot, who are behind this effort. Really big thank you that you are happy to be part of this. Yeah, and with that, I'm really looking forward to seeing your lectures. And have a nice weekend.